Alright, so now that I've seen it work, I need to get this thing mounted somewhere permanently, or permanent-ish, or at least just not that. So I think what I'm going to do is just use that spot right there. Nobody ever sits in the middle. This console's never even been folded up. And with this what is it, 750 dash, I think I can just do a 3D printed box and put it right here, and then I already have a natural wire path to it. Maybe someday when I'm done with this project, I'll figure out how to mount it in this empty hole, or maybe even in the engine compartment. I don't know. But for now, I just need to be able to keep developing on it and get it out of the way. So step one is just going to be the existing functionality mounted up over there in some kind of an enclosure. And the first thing I need to do is fix these little connectors here. These little push buttons suck. They don't hold enough tension on the wires and they just come undone. So what I did was I took another one of these boards and I desoldered those, and I just soldered on a normal screw terminal so that I can put the wires in there and get them clamped nice and solid. And now I'm going to test it and make sure that in the process of soldering it, I didn't ruin it, because I'm not a good solderer, and you can see that that one didn't flow very well. That one flowed okay, but hopefully it still works. And then I'll start worrying about wires. So I'm gonna have to get, I think this power one's long enough to route up over there, and then this wire is long enough to get over there, so I'll get it set up over there. These wires are left over from trying to figure out the CCD SCI bus, and I'm just going to take that inside and I'll just spool those wires up under there. They just run to my bulkhead connector up there, so I could depin them even and just get rid of them. But I kind of want to leave them here for now, so I'm still hoping I can get that SCI bus working at some point. So here we go. Well, shit. It looks like I ruined this one, desoldering and soldering that on. It is no longer working. I suck at soldering, and that is just not my strong suit. So I think what I'm going to do instead is look up the schematic for this thing and see if I can't just order one printed and built with one of these on it. I don't need this connector. I don't need, really, I just need like a little, I think it's just this chip and this chip, or I don't know. This one's toast though. That one seems to be working. I'm getting a readout on it, so back up a little bit and make sure I'm getting a reading on it. Yep, there it goes. 3, 2, come to a stop. I confused it. There it goes. Now it's back to 0. That was weird. But I got that moved up over there, so now I can start printing the enclosure for it and running some better quality power lines directly from the fuse box, and no more wires down there, so that's nice. And the speedometer seems to be working. So, my part for the course. I ruined something at the same time that I moved something. Let me tell you, if there's anyone on this planet that's as good at ruining electronics or just messing stuff up the first 10 times, it's me. So we'll see what I can order for some shields that have better connectors on them. Now to go find a box. Well, back to the laboratory in search of data. This here is the plug that came on my Cummins engine wiring harness. It's just a plug, there's no pins in it. It just has little things on it to keep it from getting corroded. This plug's a port that is really, really poorly documented. And in the Dodge shop manual, it literally just calls it the Cummins bus. But I have a Adrenaline Quadzilla tuner that also plugs into that, which is why the plug's not on the truck. And that Adrenaline displays all the data that I want off of that ECU. So I bought some more weather pack connectors, and I'm just going to build a simple Y cable. And so I'll plug this one into the wiring harness, and wire it to this one for the adrenaline tuner to plug into. And then I'll Y off into this one, and I'll just put this plug in it, and then I can build another cable with another connector, plug into my Arduino and see if I can figure out how to get the data that tuner's getting. And I have a distinct advantage with the tuner because it works, and so I can sniff that bus while it's working and see what kind of packets I can get off of it. And my understanding is that it's a CAN bus network, but it's not an OBD2 one, it's a Cummins specific. So I have my CAN bus sniffer, and we'll see what kind of packets I can get off of it and what I can figure out, if any. I failed gloriously getting data off of the SCI bus so far, so here we go. Alright, now I've got me Y cable that I can plug into the harness, and I can plug my tuner into that one. And then this Y's out, so I have nice long cables to do my sniffing with, and then when that's not in use, I can put the factory plug back in it, which will be nice because I've been paranoid about losing this in my toolbox. I don't know why, it's just a random connector, but step one's just going to be putting this in and making sure my tuner still works, and assuming it does, I'll hook my sniffer up and start seeing if I can see anything or not. Well, pulling data off of the ECU is proving to be quite the challenge. So I hooked up another optocoupler and I fed the camshaft sensor to it. And I figured out how to read a 60-2 tooth sensor with help from Speeduino code, which is not as hard as I would have expected. So I'm now taking in the speedometer signal and the tach signal and outputting them over ODB2. So I guess that means I gotta wire in something a little more permanent, because right now I'm just sticking a wire through the firewall through a hole. That isn't really acceptable long term, so I'll get that wire through my bulkhead connector along with all the ECU wires that I have yet to make work in any sense of fashion, and starting to get a little collection of hardware down there, so I'll have to start thinking about a better way to box all that up. But there it is, speedometer and tachometer, which are the two big ones for the heads-up display that I want displayed. And I've got something in the works to do a little bit different of a dash layout, get that Banks gauge off of that mount right there. And I think you guys are really gonna like what I'm doing, but I'm not going to give any hints in case I fail at it, because there's no guarantees I'll succeed. But I think at this point I have succeeded to make a custom open source powertrain control module that is successfully reading speedo signal and RPM signal and outputting them over ODB2. So I'm going to call this like version 0.0.2. I'll be pushing this to GitHub tonight. Still plenty of code cleanup to do, but progress is progress. So I 3D printed a little mount to mount my Arduino Mega 2, and then all the stuff I've been working on, clean up the wires a little bit so they're not sliding around so much. And I'm also working on a new cluster, so I have nothing in my dash at the moment. And then I realized I wrote the code to drive a real tachometer and speedometer as tools on the bench to figure out that Arduino, so I tossed them in here and hooked them up real quick. They're not going to stay, but it's kind of neat to drive and see the speedometer and a real tachometer work. Knowing that I wrote the code on the Arduino that's driving them, and I see the tachometer kind of dropping out a little bit, but I think that's probably just because of loose wire, because I just kind of twisted everything together and taped them up. It's not doing that on my iDash, but yeah, that's pretty neat. So now I'm at the place where I can start taking all the Cummins bus code I hacked and adding it to this PCM code. So I kind of wanted this to be in a better spot so that it's nice and somewhat put together and working before I start that, because that's gonna change a bunch of pins and potentially break it. So that'll be my first feature branch. But in the meantime, this is pretty neat. Real speedometer, real tachometer, driven by an Arduino. That's a good feeling. Alright, so I disabled the tachometer input from the camshaft sensor, and I enabled the CAN bus. That's that green and yellow wire on the back side. And I'm officially driving my tachometer directly from the Cummins ECU, which is kind of an amazing feeling. So it's working. However, I have now run into another roadblock in that other CAN bus shield seems to lock up the Cummins bus shield when I try to run them both at the same time. So now I got to figure out how to get two different CAN bus networks working at the same time without squashing each other. But one thing at a time. Just seeing that tachometer drive directly from the Cummins bus is an amazing, amazing feeling, because I wasn't even sure it was going to be possible. There it is. Alright, been one heck of a weekend, but I got the Cummins bus code moved over, and I'm trying to figure out how to get both those CAN bus modules to play together nicely. And as you can see, the tach's working, the iDash is working. The iDash is working off of ODB2, the tach's working off of the Cummins bus, so they are both working at the same time. I've learned a lot about interrupt service requests and about what not to do, not even for debugging, because boy does it break stuff. But I'm still having an issue where I'm not sure exactly how to initialize the ODB2 bus properly, so I'm using a CAN driver for that, but then taking over with my own code, but one step at a time. For now, I got speedometer and tach on my iDash through ODB2. Real tachometer's working, real speedometer's working, all being driven off of that tranny controller and my Cummins ECU. So I think that's a pretty good point to stop this video, because at this point, I have a working PCM, driving real gauges and driving ODB2, and from here it's just iterating. So I'm pretty happy with this. Be even happier when I get my dash put back together, but that's another video. Have a good one, y'all.